Stormwater detention is basically the practice of creating detention basins to capture, to temporarily store, and to gradually release the same volume of runoff as is generated directly by the storm. We see in the image on the upper left a basin, looks almost like a bathtub, and it behaves very much like a bathtub. When it rains really hard, water from the adjacent landscape is channeled into this basin, and as we see on the left, the basin fills up with water. But gradually the basin drains, because this drain that you see that I'm pointing to right here is full of holes. It's perforated, and so water gradually trickles out of the drain, and the basin of water discharges over time. So the volume of water that is dealt with in the context of a detention basin is the same as the volume of water that exists where you don't have a detention basin. What's different is that the water is detained for a while, which is why we call it stormwater detention, because we're detaining the water. We're detaining it and gradually releasing it over a long period of time. So we're capturing, temporarily storing, and gradually releasing the same volume of runoff, but we're doing it over a longer period of time. Another strategy of detention is what we call rooftop detention. Rooftop detention involves the practice of collecting rainwater on roofs, either on flat roofs. Of course, this involves special structural considerations because water and the occurrence of water puts considerably additional and different types of stress on the underlying structure. But one strategy is to use the rooftops as a way of pooling water as a detention basin and gradually releasing that water over time. The diagram on the lower right is a diagram from the Low Countries in Europe, in Netherlands and Belgium, where they over time developed a technology, a very distributed technology, where individual houses would have roof shingles that are kind of shaped kind of in a weird form. They call it a fin dam. And what happens is rainfall lands on the roof, it runs across the surface of the roof, it gets captured in this little storage device, and it has a V-notch, overflow notch. So water is stored in the catchment here, and there might be a catchment here, there might be a catchment here, there might be a catchment here. So there are several catchments throughout the roof. So it's gradually, it's detaining that water. It's not all discharging at once. It's detaining that water and gradually discharging it over time. We can also talk about stormwater detention basins and what happens to them when they're not full of water. We see three examples of stormwater detention basins where they each have a depressed landscape because they're used to store water. We can see the drain where the cursor is here in the lower left. We can see the drain here with the detention basin, and then the drain here with the detention basin. And for 95% of the year, these landscapes are essentially dry landscapes, and they become multi-use landscapes that can be used for various kinds of open space purposes. They're needed to be able to handle the detention storage capacity for less than 5% of the year. So this notion of detention basins historically has led also to an increase in open space as well as an increase in detention capacity. Stormwater detention reduces not only the rate of surface runoff, but I should say, stormwater detention reduces the rate of surface runoff, but it has no effect on the volume of runoff. Except for trapping sediment, it has minimal effects on runoff quality.